Hi, everyone. It's Mitch from SportsChatPlace.com and PickDogs.com, and it is Friday, May the 1st, 2020. And few things that we've heard today is one is over $12 billion have been lost in sports stoppage, and crazy numbers, but certainly not out of the realm and not all that surprising, but still a crazy number nonetheless. So, we're hoping that it returns soon. Today here in Maui, where I live, we're starting what they're calling Phase 1. And what Phase 1 means is that we're allowed to play golf. A lot of businesses are going to slowly reopen. We're going to try it with some social distancing. We had the lowest rate, percentage-wise, of anywhere in the world. Or anywhere in the country at least, as far as COVID cases and COVID deaths per person and per resident and all those things. So it seems like a good place to start. I know a lot of other states are starting. So just everyone be safe out there, of course, and everyone, you do it. If you feel you're high risk, then by all means, do what you have to do. Thanks. Anyways, we're going to bring in Steve Monahan here, and we're going to start talking about what the resumption of sports might look like in this country. We're going to look at Major League Baseball, we're going to look at the NBA, and we're going to look at the NHL, and we're going to look at some sim picks. And of course, we're in our new studio, so we have some technical difficulties going on. All that stuff will be figured out over time. But in the meantime, we're going to do the best that we can, as far as putting it all together. One thing about living on an island, and I talk about this with people who are teaching me about like how to fix up my studio and how to upgrade things. We're not just sitting here during the break. We're working on a lot of different things behind the scenes. But one of the challenges of living on an island is like when you need a cord, when you need this, when you need that, it's just generally not there. But anyways, let's bring in Steve Monahan, our first guest for today from Sports with Mono and Mono. And speaking of technical difficulty, well, there he is. Steve, morning, Steve. How are you? Good, thanks. I'm ready to get back onto the golf course. I haven't played in about a month and a half, so now I have an excuse for missing those putts and shanking some of those shots. But hopefully not too much of that, and going to try and get out there nice and early. But one thing that we haven't seen get out nice and early is the Major League Baseball season, and we're heading we're at the 1st of May, and I'm going to guess that by the 1st of June, we're going to have some decisions. Because what we've seen now is a lot of indecision. And Major League Baseball was ready to start. They were in spring training, and all of a sudden, they stopped, and then they started. And of all sports, baseball seems to need the most help to get started. Because it's like they have this long spring training. They have layers and layers of minor leagues. There's all this other stuff. And I mean, for a sport that really most people would choose, almost any other pro sport to watch over it. It's an amazing amount of preparation and very little respect for the product. And it's something that the sport has brung upon itself. A topic for another time. But what's the latest that you've heard on Major League Baseball? We heard the Florida and Arizona plan, but not quite sure what's up with that. Yeah, I hope so as well. I think we're going to see a lot of things happen out of this break. From normal that we're seeing around the world, and not just here in the United States, and not just on our show, and not just in sports. And we're going to see a lot of changes around. And I think one of the things that could possibly, a couple of the ones, and we're going to talk to Chris Ruffalo in just a second about. About something similar is, I always say the baseball season is too long, and there's really no point to it because once football season starts in the fall, nobody watches baseball on the weekends. I mean, they basically have to tell the NFL not to run. They won't run against Monday Night Football. They won't run Thursday Night Football. The college, it's basically they won't do it. So people are saying they can't hear you. Let me see something. Talk now, Steve.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me now?
Can you hear him now? So people are saying they can't hear you. All right, let's see if they.
I made such great observations and points, and they can't hear me. What?
What about now? Now they can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, I hit a button. But I thought that the button didn't work because we heard Rod screaming in the background and his dogs or whatever. So I thought that button didn't work. But all right. But anyways, what Steve was saying is that there's a Florida-Arizona plan out there, and I could turn my sound. I could do my sound down as well. Let's see. This is all kind of new as we're going, and. Let's see. Window. There we go. So I can put my sound down as well. There we go. That should level it out a little bit to everybody else. No? All right. Anyways, basically what Steve was saying is that the possible 100-game season really was the key takeaway there from my notes. And so I think, and I was saying, I think that for baseball, that would be a move in the right direction. I think baseball should be over by Labor Day. I think that once football starts, baseball should be winding into the postseason and sprinkling in those postseason games in with those first few weeks of football. Because once you're into October, I got to say nobody cares. Really, nobody cares.
Here's another observation. Going into the season, I would say the Yankees and Dodgers are probably the favorites to go to the World Series. The Dodgers especially are loaded for bear. So it could be anybody. If you're gonna have a 100-game season, anybody really can be the 2020 champ. Asterisk aside, but. It's fair game for anybody. We've talked about Tampa Bay, being they won 90+ games last year with nobody really of significance. So a team like that, and so really anybody could win it, depending on what the format is, and and who's getting in and who's not, that type of thing. So.
I just think we see very little movement in the actual standings after the All-Star break. It's rare. I mean, sometimes we see fights to the finish, but usually it's the same teams that are involved. It is once every 20 years a team comes out of nowhere after the All-Star break, catches fire, and gets it done. And it's like, I don't understand why it has to be so long. And, we're seeing so many empty ballparks, and with the sport so watered down, talent-wise, the disparity between first and last, and, because of the union, right, and that there is no salary cap, and yet the big small market crap going on there. It is what it is. So, I think for baseball, my guess is that we're going to hear an announcement by the middle of this month. We're going to see how things go in Georgia, in some of the bigger places. Of course, here in Maui, we're going to keep our social distancing. We have all sorts of new rules for golf and stuff. And, I know a lot of places golf has been open the whole time. But, we have a lot of things that we're trying out here in Hawaii. And I know a lot of other states are opening up today as well. And I think it will all go on how that goes. And I'll tell you what, I got a good feeling about this. I got a real good feeling about it. I think a lot of this stuff, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to make a call on this. I think a lot of it has been overblown. And, of course, you want to err on the side of caution with this stuff. But, on the other side, at a certain point, you gotta jump off the cliff. And, I talk about that all the time about, what are we going to do? Wait till there's 0 cases? Because even then, a case could spring up that was incubating, right, or something. So it's like that's not going to happen. But I think those of you that are really high risk, well, then you should take the necessary precautions. And those of us who, stay in shape, do all those things and whatever, then we do what we want to do, right? And it's kind of we take the chances. But anyways, Steve, thanks. We'll see you back in just a little bit for the sim picks. But what we have next is Chris Ruffalo with us, the Puck Dog. Chris, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good, thanks. I think we with the idea of this segment, and I hope everyone can hear Chris now, is that, and I love having Steve on the show, and I love having Chris and Rod on the show. So, it's like, I think I agree with Charlie. It's that what we have for this show, at least, and all of my shows are not going to be like this. We're going to have more shows, and we have all plans for new shows, and they're not all going to be like this. But like Rod, Chris, and Steve aren't guys that you see everywhere on the internet. They're not on a million sites. They're not whatever. So it's like you get fresh opinions here, and also these guys know their stuff. So it's like I know a lot of people out there know their stuff, and you guys will have opportunities as well. But Chris, I know in Canada there's really strict restrictions as far as things going. You guys are not opening up. You're not playing golf. You're not making dinner reservations like they are in Georgia. How do you see things playing out as far as the NBA goes, who has not given up? And we're hearing, first we heard a resumption of the season. Now we're starting to hear starting in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now, you look at the first step that they're probably going to take is we're looking at maybe May 8th for certain team facilities to open in certain markets where the stay-at-home and lockdown restrictions are starting to ease up a little bit. But then you still have teams like Atlanta who say that, you know what, even when the restrictions are lifted, we're going to still wait a couple weeks. We're going to see how it plays out. I mean, even if you open the facilities, you still have to observe social distancing. 4 players in the facilities at any time, no group activity, no coaches. Players have to wear masks when they're not on the court. And, team staff have to wear gloves. Everyone has to remain 12 feet apart. So there's still going to be quite a bit of, mandate, and there's going to be strict guidelines to make sure that if we go ahead with this, we're taking every precaution in the book to make sure that if you guys are warming up for a season that you want to finish out, this is what we're going to have to do.
So, unlike baseball, which hadn't started yet, but they were in spring training, but, the season hadn't started yet. Basketball was midstream. I mean, the Rockets were, underperforming against the easy teams. They're, competing against the really good teams. We were really right in the thick of it. We had gone through the All-Star game had happened, and in the NBA, the All-Star game isn't in the middle of the season or the end of the season. It's kind of 3/4 of the way through the season already. So, basketball is also a very streaky sport. We saw teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder, outperforming teams. We saw the Milwaukee Bucks really on a mission this year, after last year where they didn't get it done. We kind of saw the Bucks really dialed in and kind of really ready to go. What kind of effect do you think it has on some of these teams, and who do you think it hurts and who do you think it helps? There were some teams that were banged up, like the Warriors, who they're not going to make the playoffs no matter what the scenario is, right? They already said they're planning for next year, and they should be, right? I mean, I think they have been since almost day one. But then you have, other teams like the Thunder, like the Bucks, and of course the Sixers, and the Clippers, who, Is this what they mean by load management? I mean, how much load management do you have now from this point, if we do resume?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have guys like Steve Kerr who said that the Warriors are basically operating that their season's over. I think they were operating that their season was over from December, but But I mean, yeah, you mentioned the Bucks, like teams like Milwaukee, teams like maybe the Lakers, the Clippers, all these teams were in the higher tier that many people felt that they had a legitimate shot at winning the title. If this season gets washed out, you can't help but maybe those teams will play with a bit of a chip on their shoulder, that they'll feel slighted for going into next season, that what, we were right there. And even teams like Oklahoma City, like you mentioned, they were no slouch. They were hanging with the top teams. There was nothing to say that maybe they would have went on a run, maybe ran to the conference final or something, or even made it to the NBA finals. It's just a giant ball of wax with just all these different teams that are involved.
I really thought when the NBA stopped that they were the ones that were going to kind of lead us back into things. And, at this point, I think that they've tried and tried and tried. And, it's kind of like how I think we are with sports betting in the United States, with Sports Chat and with Pick Dogs. It's like, we're just way ahead. We've always been way ahead of everybody else. So as sports betting starts to come into the United States, it's like we're so far ahead. We're just sitting there and waiting. And I think the NBA is just so forward thinking, and they really have been for a while now. They're always thinking of what the next step is. And it's like, I think that maybe they got a little ahead of themselves. The Vegas compound idea, my Maui idea that I sent them, right? It's like, we'll have to see how it all pans out, for the NBA. But I think that, once again, regardless, I think the NBA is going to be the ones that lead us back. I think it's just a matter of where we start. Will we have, regular season? Will we have playoffs? And what are they going to look like? But I think, I'm going to guess that we'll know by the middle of the month at the latest, hopefully by the end of the weekend. How awesome would that be? Yeah. But anyways, Chris, thanks for joining us. We'll see you in just a little bit. Once again, that was Chris Ruffalo, the Puck Dog. We're kind of, I got a comment yesterday on our YouTube channel, and it basically said that, this show, you guys are just reaching, you're lost without sports and all that other stuff, and, kind of really not too complimentary, if you have to be honest, about it. But it's like, we know that. We know all those things. We know the show is not nearly as good as it is when we're giving out 3-team parlays and giving out, really good winners and that. And that's what we do. That's what we've done for the last 13 years. Even before there was live video on the internet that was so accessible through YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Periscope, Twitch, TikTok, whatever the hell, you can go live on. I was always out there on video with my dog of the day. I've been doing the dog of the day long before any of these other people had any video going on at all. And, we've always done picks. So it's just the whole idea of what we're doing now is it's twofold. Number one is we're trying to step up our game. You're seeing me trying little graphics. You see I'm in a new studio. You see that we're having sound problems. We're doing all those things. I'd way rather have sound problems than Steve Monahan talking about, what might happen in 6 weeks in baseball than, him talking about the Yankees-Red Sox game today. It's like, that's what this is all about. And we're just working through things that, first we're going to do my studio, then we're going to do everybody else's studio, and we're going to kind of work in that way. So, that's kind of what we are doing here as far as production quality. And then the other thing is just letting you guys know that we're here. We're going for the continuity effect. It's like, so one of the comments that I got yesterday was that I'm not looking into the camera. I know that, and because I'm directing the show and producing the show while I'm doing it. And they're saying, well, take yourself off camera more when you're doing some of that stuff. And it's just a very difficult thing because some of the devices that I've ordered to make this stuff easier haven't come in yet. So it just makes it a little tougher. But, these are all things that I'm working on. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have tightened up. So whether there's 23 people watching or 30 people watching, and we love every one of you that are watching, this is the time where we can work on these things. And then when we have the 500, 600 people with the rapid fire questions, we'll be able to handle it. But anyway, speaking of handling it, we got Rod Zawacki here with us, the master of the Birdcage. Rod, how you doing?
Okay. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Rod was unmuted. See, these are all things though. That's part of the fun of it. This is kind of what we do, and so the last section here is the NHL, and we've heard different things from the NHL. First, we started hearing North Dakota or South Dakota or something, and we've heard Calgary or all these different scenarios. And then all of a sudden, one day the NHL comes out and they say, nah. So where are we with the NHL these days?
Well, they had a big meeting yesterday with the NHL and the Players Association, and basically they're not farther ahead. They're still on their timeline of we're still in phase one, quarantine everybody. They're hoping by mid-May, end of May, that they can move into phase two and get players back on the ice and skating again and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And yes, so those ideas of playing in North Dakota and Edmonton and Toronto and cities, those are still on the table, but there's nothing set in stone yet. Those definitely aren't set in stone. Those are just ideas that are bouncing around to be able to finish out the season and do the playoffs.
Yeah,
over the summer. It's still our goal. So.
It just seems that the NHL was kind of like they've tried and tried and tried, but it's kind of like the same thing as the NBA, except I think the NHL has a little bit more hurdles to jump through, maybe, than the NBA does because of the ice, right? The ice itself is a factor. I know a lot of times it's like they cover the ice, when they have concerts and stuff, but I wonder how much the cost is to have the ice in August in Boston versus February in Boston. I mean, you think there's a different cost factor there? I mean, I don't know anything about this.
Probably not. You're still going to use the same amount of water. You just might have to make things a little bit colder.
Well, I think
it's just a machine that it goes up, dials a little colder. It's probably like your air conditioner. You use just a little more air conditioner when it's hot than what it is in the winter.
So what teams do you think will be most affected if we do come back? Like, we know that, Tampa Bay was kind of on a mission, to say we're the best team, but we're going to pull back a little bit because we don't want to go into the playoffs as the best team. It was your scenario because they'd already tried that and it didn't work for them, right? So, then we have other teams that were like, just trying
Columbus was just beat up. Columbus was really injured, had lots of injuries. All those guys will be back.
So, it just seems that, it's almost like starting over because hockey seems to be the sport where the hot goalie really at the right time seems to make all the difference in the world. It just really seeing these guys stone guys late in the season just seems to make all the difference.
Before this stoppage, I who was going to be there at the end. Now it's anybody's game. Who comes out hot after this? You have no idea. Anybody can win this. That's the good thing. That's what I love about hockey is that the chance of a team who sneaks into the playoff win the cup. Really good. Really good.
All right. Well, there was a brief look at all the different sports out there. We're going to bring the guys back in and do the sim picks and see how it goes. How did we do yesterday on these sim picks?
So we had a bunch of high-scoring games yesterday. The Jets beat the Dolphins 47-30 in the first game. The Vikings beat the Texans outright 37-24.
I think I had the Texans in there.
The Steelers beat the Eagles in overtime 40-34.
I had the Steelers.
And the Cowboys beat the Chargers 37-6.
I definitely had the Chargers in that one.
I did too. 1-3, Meg. Ouch.
All did.
All right. Well, what do we got? In today's scenario, I know that there's all the different online sports books are now running sim games. So it seems that there's an endless number of them. We cover, we're covering. So someone in the comments said something about Taiwanese basketball, whatever. We have that covered and Taiwanese baseball. We have this stuff covered at both of our websites, at Sports Chat and at Pick Dogs. We're covering all this stuff as well as Belarus and Nicaraguan soccer. So I know it's not stuff that we normally cover, and that's why Rod and I have gone back and forth on these horse racing things because it's like I kind of want to do horse racing, but it's like I don't want to get overly involved in it because I don't see it as something that I'm going to do over the long term. I might get somebody else to do it for us. But I think, as we're building out our brands and our products, I think at least at first in a lot of these shows, I need to be on here with you guys because, I kind of have a way, we kind of have a brand in the way that we do things, so it's like having me on at this point is somewhat important to the show. So it's just, I don't see myself sitting here for 5 hours watching horses. It's just not what I do, So, I love horses as much as the next guy. You guys usually see me in Vegas or at the races for the Breeders' Cup or, things like that, Derby, all those different things. But as far as like sitting here online for 5 or 6 hours and pretending I'm, some horse racing handicap all of a sudden, most people don't know, but I started out anything I've ever done in sports was in Cincinnati, Ohio at River Downs. They used to have a show called they still do. It's called the Regular Guy Show. And basically, in between races, there was 2 guys who picked races, and Tuesdays and Thursdays were my day. So I was on there all the time. And my very first race, I picked a straight trifecta, all bombs. It paid like $1 paid like $1,400, and it was like they got calls from all over the place because it was simulcasted, and I was on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And let's just say I was still drinking back then and ate a lot of chicken wings as well. So just good times. But as far as spending my days like that now, I think I know myself, and I know if it comes between watching the Ohio State Michigan game or watching the 4th at Oaklawn, or Woodbine, I'm gonna watch Ohio State Michigan, and I'm gonna bitch about Gus Johnson's call of the game, and it's like I miss that. I miss like being on the wrong side of a college football game and Gus Johnson doing the sound effects. Boom! Wow! Ooh, JK all day. It's like I miss it, right? It's like shut up. Anyways, Chris, let's get to today's games.
All right. So at 12 Eastern, Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Indianapolis Colts. Colts -3, over under 51.5. I like the Colts.
So it's me. It's Indy for me. I'm writing them down now.
Colts.
Okay.
Bucks.
Bucks for Rod.
At 3 Eastern, Giants at the Bills. Bills -4.5, over under 50.5. I like the Bills by double digits.
Yeah. Bills.
Bills.
Bills for me.
At 7 Eastern, Cowboys at Saints. Saints -2.5, over under 61.5.
Cowboys. I like the Cowboys on the back-to-back.
Saints.
I like the Saints as well. And the last one, 10 Eastern, Chargers at Cardinals. Chargers -6.5, over under 54.5.
I'm embarrassed to have picked the Chargers yesterday. I'm going to take the Cardinals. I'm going to change teams.
I'm going to take the Chargers.
I'm going to go Chargers.
Back to the well, as they say. All right, we got NBA or anything else, or is that it?
Just checking it now. Yeah, there's 3 NBA. So 5 Eastern, Pacers at Nets. Nets -10.5, over under 108.5.
So
I like the Pacers.
So we get this question: if you go to sportschatplace.com, Sports Chat Place. If you go to Sports Chat Place and you click on the article of these sim picks, the ones that Chris wrote up, that's where you can bet these games. There's links in there to bet them, so you can go there and bet them. Go ahead, Chris. NBA.
It's Pacers at Nets. Nets -10.5, over under 108.5.
Pacers.
Pacers.
Yeah, Pacers.
10.5. Yeah, that's a messed up line.
Kyrie Irving must be at 400 in this game. That's my guess.
Yeah.
And healthy.
7. Yeah, probably. For once. 7 Eastern, Warriors at Mavericks. Warriors -5.5, over under 117.5.
See, the Mavs are like the Thunder, a little bit ahead of themselves, but then the public got way ahead of themselves on the Mavs, man. I've been betting against the Mavs a good part of the season. You know, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to take Thunder.
Take the Mavs.
I'll take the Mavs as well.
No, nothing.
I'll take the Warriors.
It's
Warriors.
It's Warriors, not Thunder. All right, I'll take the Warriors. All right. Is that it?
And last one at 9 Eastern, Kings at Clippers. Clippers minus 9.5. Over under 97.5.
Bro, nothing's blown up my parlays over the years like the Clippers.
I'll take the over. That seems kind of low, even for 6-minute quarters.
Over.
I'll take the Clippers. That's a death sentence. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Like I said, this is a work in progress. If you have any topics that you want us to discuss or any suggestions or help, that would be great. If you just want to criticize us because the show is kind of deteriorated because we don't have a hell of a lot to talk about as far as picks, well, I guess you can do that if that's the type of person you are and you really need to do it. I guess that's what we're here for. I've been a punching bag for 13 years online, so nothing new over here. Anyways, have a great day, everyone. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to go hit the golf course, and maybe Rod and I eventually will do a horse pick segment on this show. I think that's where we're headed, where we just do these are some races I'm looking at today. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.
See ya.